IFRS for small businesses. So the message that I want to give today to the small business owners is that they can be able to draft their own financial statements. That is, you can be able to draft your own financial statements as a small business owner. And then you need to find a qualified accountant who is associated with a professional body to sign your financial statements. So when they sign, they will sign your financial statements. And after signing, they need to give their name. And they also need to give the details of the professional body in which they are affiliated with. So they also need to give their practice number. So then your financial statements, when you need funding, when you want to disclose some information, financial information to your stakeholders, it can be the bank, it can be SARS, then it will be easier for your financial statements to be regarded as being credible if they are signed by a qualified accountant who is associated with a particular professional body. I don't want to dwell on this part because I want to keep this simple for the small business owners. What I have realized in my journey as a consultant is that a lot of small business owners do not want to see their financial statements. They think that it's something that is big, it's something that has a big language, it's something that they can read. They just ask us to gather that information, and most of them, they say, I am willing to pay, just compile these financial statements for me. So once we compile those financial statements for those businesses, we charge them a commission for doing that job, depending on the scale of the business. So we don't have one fee for all the businesses. So we charge different fees for different businesses based on their scale. So International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, for SMEs. So although the name sounds technical and the concept is actually quite simple. So IFRS stands for International Financial Reporting Standards. So in other words, the format that you use, I'm trying to put it in a layman's term. So it means that the formats that we use will be common to those that are used by big businesses, so that the reader of our financial statements can find it easy. So let's go to the next slide and see why this is important. So why IFRS for SMEs is important. So imagine if you want to apply for funding from a bank, from CIFA, which is now the merger of SEDA. So there was a merger of CIFA and SEDA. Now they are called SEDFA. So if you want to apply for funding with the bank, with SEDFA, with IDC, National Skills Fund, you will need financial statements. So the first thing they will ask you for are the financial statements. Where are your financial statements? Part of the business plan, part of the CK documents, part of the many other documents like your bank statement, they'll say, where are your financial statements? And the source document that they will use is your bank statement. So if your financial statements are prepared using IFRS for SMEs, they become easier to understand and they become even more credible. And this increases confidence amongst banks, investors, suppliers, and government institutions. That is, the stakeholders who are interested in your financial statements, even the South African Revenue Services, even your employees, So if you don't have financial statements, it becomes difficult for them to trust what you disclose to them in terms of your finances. So who uses IFRS for SMEs? So IFRS for SMEs is suitable for businesses such as private companies. So private companies can have a director, one director as a minimum, but it can go, currently we don't have a limit, but it's not normal for a company to have more than 50 directors. So because of the unemployment and so on, so the new Companies Act that took place on the 1st of May 2011, the new Companies Act numbers, that is Companies Act number 71 of 2008, it says that there must be one director as a minimum for a private company, as a minimum. Closed corporations, we only deal with the existing closed corporations, the CCs. After the 1st of May 2011, when the new Companies Act came into effect, the opening of the closed corporations, the registration of the closed corporations was halted. So the cooperatives which exist with the minimum of 5 members, they also use IFRS. Closed corporations that are existing after the 1st of May 2011, they also use IFRS. So if they want to draft financial statements that will be easily understood, non-profit companies where appropriate. So in other words, for instance, when you submit your report to the Department of Social Development, usually they don't need the financial statements. They may need your financial statements if you had some outstanding reports. Let's say maybe you were not reporting for quite some time as a non-profit organization. So the non-profit companies, non-profit organizations, in certain instances, they don't need financial statements, but in certain instances, then they need financial statements. So again, the small enterprises, they also need financial statements if they want to apply for a loan, if they want to apply for funding. So it is not normally used by listed companies, banks or insurance companies, like big businesses. They use full IFRS. They don't use IFRS for small businesses. So there's IFRS for SMEs and there's full IFRS. So the full IFRS is used by the big businesses. So the list of financial statements is made up by 5 main financial statements and the notes under IFRS for SMEs. So under IFRS for SMEs, a complete set of financial statements includes 5 main statements and notes. Statement of financial position, what used to be known as balance sheet, which shows assets, liabilities, and equity. Statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. So your small business needs to reflect, needs to present, in fact, this set of financial statements when we apply for funding. So you won't get your funding if you don't have these financial statements. So this is the work that we do when we do paperwork for small businesses. So when we charge you a commission, you don't need to complain and say, hey, you are too pricey. We are doing what we know here. We don't thumb suck. We are not thumb sucking. We are not trying to find something in the dark here. We're doing something that we know, and we're doing something that we have an experience on. So when, for example, our prices are becoming more and more pricey now because the paperwork includes the CVs for the members of the company. If you talk of the corporation, 5 CVs are needed. If you talk about the private company, depending on the number of the directors, when you apply for funding, then you need financial statements, statement of financial position, statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, statement of changes in equity, statement of cash flow, notes to the financial statements, And sometimes when you need comparative information. For instance, when we do financial projections in your business plan, we also need your business plan, also need to prepare your business plan. So you don't need to come and say, hey, you are too pricey and we can't use your services. Then go to another consultant. We have a huge list. In fact, now there's a political organization that wants us to work with them. They want us to work full-time as their consultant. So when we do your funding documentation, we are very pricey because we don't want to disappoint. We don't want to work being unhappy. So the statement of financial position shows three elements: assets, liabilities, and equity. The statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income shows income, expenses, profit or loss, and other comprehensive incomes. Whereas the statement of changes in equity shows changes in owner's equity. Your drawings and so on will be shown there. For example, when we read your bank statement and we find some money that you withdraw and there is no reference for that money, then we always present that money as drawings, unless if you tell us and if you prove it with the source documents. The statement of cash flow. So it shows your cash inflows and your cash outflows. And then you have notes to the financial statements where we provide additional information for the stakeholders to understand. So as a small business owner, you need to understand why do you need to prepare your financial statements using IFRS. But not just any IFRS, but IFRS for SMEs. There is a full IFRS and there is IFRS for SMEs. Full IFRS is used by big businesses like banks, those companies that are listed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the public companies. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope that you understood one or two concepts or all of them. So we thank your support and we hope you will watch the next video.